This podcast is not intended to provide any investment advice. The opinions expressed here by either the hosts or guests do not necessarily reflect the views of PSA, Collectors Holdings, or any of their affiliates. Any discussion of collectible values in the past or present is not a guarantee of future performance.
Hello and welcome back. Another week of the PSA Pod. Ryan and Jack here. We got Chris from Card Ladder joining us remotely. Not quite the sports equinox last week, but still a lot going on. We are going to start with stock up, stock down this week, just like last week. We had a blast with it. Coming up a little bit later in the show, going to be joined by Matt Hendler from the PSA product team, who joined the show for the first time back in April. One of the most listened to episodes of the PSA Pod to date. He is one of the in-house resident soccer card experts, and that's putting it mildly.
The man jets out to like Brazil,
yes,
and hunts flea markets for rare stickers, finds them, gets them authenticated. He's like an incredibly impressive collector. The conversation is going to be fantastic.
Yeah, he really opened a lot of eyes with the conversation about the soccer card market back in April. And now as we move into November, the World Cup is here. So perfect time to bring him back. He'll be joining us here in a little bit. But gentlemen, we're going to start where we started last week, stock up, stock down. This was a pretty good sports weekend once again.
It's a good time to be a sports fan. It's a really good time to be a Philadelphia Eagles fan.
Oh my goodness.
Man, that team is flying high right now. Jalen Hurts, stock up. What's crazy to me is that, we were all ripping 2020 football product and everyone was chasing Joe Burrow. Herbert came on pretty fast. And Jalen Hurts was kind of like the nice to have afterthought guy, along with Jordan Love of the Packers. Now Jalen Hurts is like the guy. Obviously, his prices don't reflect what Herbert and Burrow's prices are at, but the rise in his hobby stock, in his NFL stock in general, has been really, really impressive. And the Eagles did it again.
Chris, what are you seeing with Hurts? Because, Jack kind of made mention to it. The prices still haven't, it seems, quite touched Burrow and Herbert. Why is that?
Oh, man. The why of that question is really hard. I can give you the how, or I don't even know if it's the how. Here's what I want to give you. I want to let you guys know that Hurts' index in Card Ladder is up 107% over the last year, meaning the cards being tracked by that index are in the aggregate more than double what they were a year ago, which is very strong considering that over that same time span, the football card index is down. So it's even, his index by itself is actually understating the performance of his market relative to his peers. Very strong market performance. But I do think one of the factors, Ryan, that comes into play when comparing, as Jack sketched, the landscape of QBs from the 2020 class, Herbert, Burrow, Tua to Hurts, there's a huge head start that hyped players get off to that is really difficult to make up. It can take years, and it's just, there's really no replacement for that pre-product, pre-season, media darling or trio of media darlings in this case. But with that said, we have seen examples of slow starters who have become absolute hobby giants. A few of them that come to mind are Steph Curry, Mike Trout, and Giannis.
What's great about Jalen Hurts cards is that his team color is green, and it opens up a lot of opportunity to get into really beautiful, semi-affordable cards across Prism, Mosaic, Select, because of the green retail parallels there. I really like his classic green Prism. I like his green Mosaic card. Good opportunity for collectors just to get beautiful Jalen Hurts cards. If you're a believer, if you're an Eagles fan, if you just like what you see so far.
It also, I guess that's a great point with, like you said, the built-in hype of being a top 5 pick quarterback versus a second rounder who's really got to prove it. Whereas you can see prices on first round guys crash a lot in a much more steep manner. I guess, what does it look like on the other side? Because, let's say there's some regression to the mean with Hurts. It seems like a little bit of a risky place to get in.
Well, Ryan, the thing that I would say about Hurts here in the stock down, stock up world is clearly his stock is up. But to your point, how much higher can his stock go? And there I think you have to start getting into prognostications about what the Eagles are going to be able to do this year. They're 7-0. There's been ramblings for weeks now, maybe even months on podcasts about how easy the Eagles' schedule is. There almost is an expectation that at this point they're going to lose maybe 2 games, 3 games at the most. And usually that stuff ends up getting factored into prices in advance. So the question really becomes, will the Eagles have a Super Bowl bound path and or win? I think that is the question on the table for people trying to forecast where Hurts prices might go over the next 6 months or so.
Well, looking at a quarterback who I think we can pretty confidently say will not be in the Super Bowl this year, let's go stock down in the NFL side. I feel bad because literally like a month ago on this show, we were singing pretty much a different tune because that's what we were seeing was telling us at the time.
Yeah, football can be heartbreaking like that.
It really can.
Trevor Lawrence, I still have faith. The pedigree is so high with him, but it is disappointing because the offseason was filled with like excuses. Like his coaching staff, his rookie year was a mess. He wasn't set up to succeed. Doug Peterson is gonna unlock him. We're gonna see a whole new level of Trevor Lawrence. We haven't necessarily seen that yet, but I think it could still be coming. And that really just goes back to trust the process, trust the pedigree, trust what you saw at Clemson with Trevor Lawrence. I think he'll figure it out. But it is kind of a weird time in the hobby for him specifically because his prices were a little bit muted. They went up towards the beginning of the year, and now they're kind of coming down slightly. So it'll be interesting to see how the rest of the season plays out, and then going into next year, what the buzz level and the hype level for Trevor Lawrence is at.
We're almost seeing collectors get conditioned here a little bit because he's in year 2. We talked about Jalen Hurts. We've talked a lot about, Tua on the show now. He's breaking out this year. Those guys are in year 3. Took a little while for the franchise to build around them, for them to really get comfortable in the same system. Could it be a similar situation here with Trevor Lawrence and the Jags? Do you kind of have to eye year 3?
Yeah, I think we're kind of spoiled between Mahomes, between Josh Allen, Burrow, Herbert, people that kind of had a really, really fast start to their career. And sometimes it takes time. I mean, there's some parallels between Trevor Lawrence and Peyton Manning's start to their carear. So who really knows? I'm not saying Trevor Lawrence is going to be Peyton Manning by any measure, but it is still early. There is still time. And there is enough flashes of really good stuff that he might not be stocked down for much longer.
Yeah. Chris, is it truly like a severe stock down right now, or are people, from what you guys are seeing, like, are collectors kind of keeping the faith with him?
Well, Trevor Lawrence is sort of the flip side, or the worst case. Well, let me not be too dramatic, but a pretty poor scenario in terms of a player who's a number 1 overall pick, who's extremely hyped, and then gets off to a really slow start. So, like, we were talking about Hurts has sort of become the cream of the 2020 class, and that's fair. But, Burrow and Herbert and Tua, Tua leads the league in quarterback rating. Burrow is fresh off a Super Bowl appearance. Herbert is hailed as one of the absolute physical specimens in the NFL. Whereas Lawrence, outside of a pocket, maybe like a 2 or 3 game pocket of high level play, has been utterly disappointing, and has also, not gotten a great shake in terms of coaching staff turnover, institutional support from the organization, and so on. So just to preface or to put some context on this, Lawrence is really in an unfavorable spot in the hobby, not to mention Jacksonville isn't exactly, a highly collected market. So with that said, over the last year, Trevor Lawrence's card ladder index is down 58%. And it's important to note that being down 58% is a very different thing than being up 58%. You can go up hundreds of percentages, you can go up thousands of percentages. You can only go down a maximum of 100%. So to be down 58% is very tough for a player's market. But, Lawrence had very high expectations, and they just haven't been met yet, full stop.
Yeah, and I am with Jack. I think it's still hard not to be a believer. The pedigree's there, the arm talent, it's crazy. Just gotta, like you said, trust the process.
If he had short hair, would he be as collectible?
Now we're dipping into core score territory with the cool factor and but I get it.
Yeah.
Let's switch over to the hardwood because now we're almost a couple weeks into the NBA season. We're starting to really start to see some dust settle. Lots of hot starters.
Yeah, SGA is popping off. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, he was drafted by the Clippers. He was sent to Oklahoma City in the Paul George trade. And he's been someone that's kind of like been sort of at the B level of the hobby in terms of basketball collectors for the last several years. He's part of that 2018 class with Luka and Trey. And there's been a lot of like excitement and hype for him, but not at the level of a lot of other players that have entered the league recently. But I tell you what, every time I go on Instagram, I see like 5 stories of people saying like, this guy is really good, or this guy is underrated, this guy is special. And you're seeing it really come to life on the court this year so far. The Thunder's still in rebuilding mode. The Chet Holmgren injury kind of, pushed back their timeline potentially. But Shai Gilgeous has been utterly incredible this year. He's averaging 31, 7, and 5 through the first 5 games. And he's got some great cards. And if you look at the prices for, say, like his Blue Prism color match compared to, Luka's,
yeah,
I mean, the pricing is significant. I'm not saying Luka's doesn't deserve where his pricing is, but Shai Gilgeous-Alexander just seems utterly approachable compared to that. And just a really kind of interesting player. But he does have the Clippers jersey on in his rookie card. You know how our boss Steve Sloan feels about switching jerseys. So that might be a little bit of a ding in terms of his collectability.
Chris, does that bug you?
Yeah, it does actually quite a bit. The jersey changing and or the number changing, it's not a deal breaker, but it's less than optimal.
Okay, that's fair. He's like you said though, the middle of the rebuild in Oklahoma City, but man, like they're going to get Holmgren back next year, and they still have like 1 million first-round picks in the next 4 or 5 drafts.
Yeah, I mean the future is absolutely bright for them. They have Josh Giddey too.
Your guy.
They're gonna be like really. I think they're gonna be really good, better than a lot of people think. Like I think they could be really good as soon as like next year, and definitely within 2 years. But that's just my personal belief.
I'm old enough to remember how fun it was when they were good the first time around with Durant and Westbrook and
Harden.
Yeah, that's a fun basketball market when that team is good. So on the other side of that, who you eyeing kind of as stock down? Not necessarily saying they've been a total disappointment so far, but someone in the market through the first couple weeks of the NBA season who's standing out on the other side.
I'll tell you what, all summer I was hunting for like a nice Anthony Edwards card or two. And I feel like no collectors wanted to move him. Everybody was just holding tight.
Yeah.
It was very, very difficult to acquire any type of Anthony Edwards card to the point where I just gave up. Because any card I wanted, I wasn't able to get at a price that I felt was fair. And throughout the first handful of games, the Timberwolves just don't necessarily feel as flashy as everybody was expecting with the arrival of Rudy Gobert. There feels like there's some chemistry issues that are still being worked out. There was some kind of like passive aggressive Karl Anthony Towns comments about like Anthony Edwards' diet and stuff like that. So there's just, a little bit of bad mojo in Minnesota right now. I would assume his pricing's down slightly, but just the sheer athletic ability of Anthony Edwards and his likability, his acting chops, everything. He feels like a really fun player to connect. The ceiling feels really high. And I believe personally that the T-Wolves will figure it out somehow.
Chris, what are you seeing with Ant-Man?
Well, we're still comfortably in the early overreaction quadrant of the NBA schedule. So let's just, I know that goes without saying, but to Jack's point, Anthony Edwards' player efficiency rating is 15.8. 15 is league average. So right now, John Hollinger's metric is telling us that Anthony Edwards is playing slightly above average basketball, which is way short of what the expectations were. But, whether we're talking Shea or Anthony Edwards, both of them are faring much better than the basketball market as a whole. So over the last 6 months, the Card Ladder's basketball index, which tracks 14,000 cards, that's down 25%. But Shea is only down 10%. So relative to basketball, he's outperforming it by 15%, which is significant. And Ant-Man is down 15%. Again, this is over the last 6 months. So Ant-Man doing worse than Shea, but doing better than basketball on the whole, which is not a terrible place to be at right now.
We'd be remiss if we didn't talk about the World Series also going on for some stock up, stock down, right in the middle of the Astros and Phillies. And, stock up here kind of times out with a really cool product release last week, Jack. Topps Update 2022 was a pretty fun checklist and product that just got dropped. And one of the big rookies on that checklist is a guy who's had a really, really nice postseason after a really good and kind of quiet rookie season at the major league level.
Yeah, very underrated rookie season. He was clearly overshadowed by Julio Rodriguez and Bobby Witt Jr. to an extent. But just a really fun young shortstop for the Astros. There was a reason that they were okay letting Carlos Correa go because they knew what they had. And he's been really, really good. And again, overshadowed by Julio and Bobby Witt with this release as well. Him, Stephen Kwan, and a few others snuck on the checklist. And it's a really good product, I think. And there's some fun cards to chase, especially the black gold insert. They rolled that back for another year.
They're amazing.
The throwback to the iconic early 90s set. Really, really nice. Ryan was actually showing me a gold parallel. I think it's the 75 they did of the black gold insert. And man, that card is really, really, really sweet.
Yeah, Jeremy Pena has been he's had an incredible postseason. He had the big home run in the ALCS against the Yankees. Just like you said, they really had to be confident knowing what they had, letting Carlos Correa walk after last season. And it really couldn't time out better for his flagship rookie card to be dropping. Because he hasn't been in any other 2022 Topps baseball products until the past week when he's in the middle of playing in his first World Series. So pretty awesome. On the other side, I don't know that this necessarily counts as fully stocked down, but we wanted to talk a little bit about on the other piece of that double play combo, Jose Altuve. It's really fascinating to see the Astros making another deep postseason run, 4th World Series in 6 years. And this is a guy who, when you look at his career, like he's in his 12th Major League Baseball season, career 307 hitter, almost 2,000 career hits. Like, this is a guy you would think like would be heralded as like one of the greatest players of his generation. And it just really goes to show how one like kind of moment of scandal, like what they had with over the 2017 World Series win, can really affect overall collectability.
Yeah. I mean, in fairness, it was a pretty big scandal. I mean, I've seen some side-by-side metrics of Altuve's career and Trout's career. I believe Altuve was in 2011 Topps as well. So it has that classic iconic design with that beautiful ribbon and the white border. But, more similar than you would think. And really, really good player. But his prices are just so depleted because of the cheating scandal. It's actually refreshing to see some of Jeremy Pena's first Bowman Chrome stuff pop off like it's been doing lately. Because it kind of shows that like the next generation of the Astros, Jeremy Pena, Yordan Alvarez, Kyle Tucker, they're immune to sort of like the previous scandal that is still plaguing Alex Bregman and is still plaguing Jose Altuve.
Yeah, it's, Chris, in your opinion, is it too late? I mean, can Altuve's, I guess, market really ever recover to even close to where it should be based on his accomplishments at this point?
It's a great question. I know those baseball collectors hold a grudge like none other, to be honest.
Gosh, yes.
So, I mean, and we've got the Tatis thing that's going to take some time to play out here in collectors' minds. Wouldn't want to project anything onto baseball collectors here. So let's just say that to draw the contrast between our stock up Jeremy Pena and Altuve in stock down. Altuve's highest selling card ever at public auction or in a public marketplace setting happened 4.5 years ago, pre-pandemic boom, industry explosion over the last 2 or 3 years. It happened on February 13th, 2018. It was his 2010 Bowman Chrome Orange Refractor PSA 9, and it sold for $4,800. That's the highest Altuve sale on record. Now, by comparison, the 2020 Bowman Chrome Sapphire, not Bowman Chrome, but the Sapphire product, Jeremy Pena's red out of 10 autograph, PSA 10, was purchased for $17,000 3 days ago on eBay. So wow. Jeremy Pena's highest sale ever 3 days ago, $17,000 for the Bowman Sapphire Red PSA 10. Altuve's highest sale ever, south of $5,000 4.5 years ago.
One of the great things about baseball, that's a mind-blowing stat that you just rolled off, Chris. But one of the great things about baseball is, even though Jeremy Pena's true rookie card was just released last week, because of Bowman Chrome and because of the Bowman Chrome First, collectors can still buy someone's card leading up to it. And I just think I'm not saying the other sports need that, but it's one of the really unique things that make baseball card collecting so different and so special.
Yeah, it really is. Stock up, stock down, having a blast with this. We're going to be back with more of it next week. But for now, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back on the other side, going to be joined by Matt Hendler from the PSA product team, soccer super collector. You're going to learn something. I guarantee it. Definitely learned a lot the first time around. Good conversation coming up.
Hey guys, Drew here, producer of the PSA Pod. I'm a big basketball collector and the bulk of my collection is modern to ultra modern cards. If you're like me, it's a great time to submit your cards for grading as we just launched our $15 per card modern sports card bulk grading special, which is exclusive to our PSA Collectors Club members. The modern special pricing is for cards manufactured from 1996 through the present, most recent releases on the market, such as Select Basketball, Topps Update Baseball, and much more. Orders must be a minimum of 10 cards with a maximum declared value of $199 with an estimated turnaround time of 120 days. Visit psacard.com/join to become a Collectors Club member today and visit psacard.com/specials for full details on this incredible deal, which is available through the end of November.
All right, we're back here on the PSA Pod, and as mentioned, really excited to welcome another second-time guest here to the show in our first year of this show, Matt Hendler from the product team here at PSA. Matt, thanks for jumping in.
It's great to be back.
I was really excited to have you back because we're about 40 episodes into this show, and your first appearance back in April to date is one of the 5 most listened to episodes of this show. And I remember after recording it thinking, man, I really learned something that episode. Obviously me and you talk about cards a lot.
Yep.
And you are very deep into the soccer end of the hobby.
Yep.
And you really brought that knowledge and that wealth of knowledge that, obviously everyone here at PSA is aware of with you to the show. And I think people learned a lot, and I hope that's the case again today.
I hope so. I'm really excited to talk soccer. You know how much I don't stop talking about it. So
no, and that's why we wanted to have you on now, because we're into November, and obviously it's World Cup month.
Yes.
It's typically not the case with the World Cup. Typically more of a summer event every 4 years.
Yeah, it's really different. It still doesn't feel real. I don't know a good way to put it, but it's not natural for it to be right now.
The ad campaigns for Fox have been really funny because they have John Hamm as Santa Claus.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I've never seen Santa Claus 1 on TV this early and 2 used in World Cup ad campaigns. So
yes,
it's different, but it's still going to be huge.
It's different, but I will still be watching every single game. So yes, I'm still very excited. It's going to be a great World Cup in Qatar. Despite the issues around that, whole decision. I think a lot of people are excited. It's, every 4 years, biggest event in the world. A lot of great young players up and coming. Also, I think, we have this potential last World Cup for so many of the greatest players of all time, Ronaldo, Messi, obviously being the two big ones. So there's going to be a lot of eyeballs. And I think a lot of people who hope we have a Portugal Argentina final. That would be perfect.
That would be massive.
It would be probably, I think I could easily say it would be the most watched event of all time.
Do you think it could happen?
It technically can happen. Will it happen?
On the likelihood scale?
Likelihood scale, it's very low, but with these kind of things, they somehow always just happen to fall into place, and so you just never know.
So, as mentioned, Matt was on a very popular episode of the PSA Pod. If you haven't heard it, check below in the description. We link back to that episode, so you can go listen to it. It was like an hour of soccer talk, and I mean, if you don't know much about the soccer end of the hobby and you want to learn, no matter what your interest level is, you can learn a ton. And it was a really fascinating conversation, and it still really holds up today. 7 months later. So, we're going to talk mostly about the World Cup today. And we got to start with Team USA, the U.S. men's national team being back in the World Cup. It's not only huge for the program and for the country, but it's huge specifically for Christian Pulisic, right?
Yes.
The best American player on the planet, I think it's safe to say.
You would have some, recently you might have some people arguing that, but I think it's safe to say that's probably a true statement.
The most accomplished active player?
Definitely.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we'll go there. What does this being on this stage mean for, his appeal in general as an American athlete in the hobby? Like, this is a huge moment for him just with sports fans, period. But let's talk also about in the hobby, being the premier athlete in this event, the premier American athlete in this event. What does it mean for him?
It's massive. I mean, if you look back at the few players that, people who don't watch a lot of soccer might know, like Tim Howard, Landon Donovan, they're still big names just because they played for the U.S. national team. So people know them. But Christian Pulisic is a whole nother level. He's not, he's much different than someone like a Landon Donovan, who did play a little bit in Europe during their career. But Christian Pulisic has, he started at a massive club at Dortmund, plays for one of the, top 15 clubs in the world at Chelsea, won a Champions League trophy. Those are not minor accomplishments. Those are, very few, even of the best soccer players in the world ever accomplished that. So this is a massive moment. After missing out in 2018, it was definitely devastating. But it's not surprising. We had a lot of things going on in 2017 and 2018 qualifying for the World Cup. But this young core that we have, I think we have the second, I think we might be the youngest team that qualified for the World Cup. So Pulisic, along with like Reyna, Aronson, have a lot of potential to finally make themselves household names in the United States. A lot of people do know Pulisic, but I think this will be the final push to make him that household name, like Clint Dempsey, Landon Donovan, Tim Howard, that everyone knows, those soccer players in the U.S.
So this will be the biggest stage he's been on since the hobby really boomed a few years ago, even having played in the Champions League.
It's biggest sense of Champions League.
Yeah, so that means there's gonna be a lot of people wanting to get in on like Christian Pulisic cards, not just from new World Cup releases, but going back to some of his bigger products. So let me throw this out there. Give me a low end, a mid level, and a high end.
Yep.
If I'm wanting to start the Christian Pulisic PC this month, where am I starting?
I think for me personally, if I'm going low / just cheaper entry point, I would go between two options, which is either the 2016 Donruss debuts card, or a 2016 top sticker. So if you are into stickers, that's a good option too. And it's a dual sticker with another player, but still is one of his rookie items. So those are cheaper options that I think are very common, easy to find. If you just want to have an item of his, it's a place to look at.
Okay.
Medium, I would say probably 2017 Select, 2017 Chrome, which is his first Chrome card. Has some great parallels. I really like just in general the base Chrome that he has from that set. I think it's a nice card. And then for higher end, you really want to, this is your main PC. I would say 2016 select patch autographs. Definitely some very, very nice cards that he has. Just from that whole select set, there are some like some gold parallels he has. So those are very valuable, numbered out of 10. But in general, he has the patch autographs that are pretty sought after. So I think that's like a grail piece for
it's
his
a good
collection.
range.
It is
Good range there.
Yeah.
So you mentioned World Cup products.
Yeah.
That's the big thing we want to talk about today is, going into this World Cup, it's truly unique because, for example, we're into the beginning of November.
Mhm.
Prism World Cup is one of the biggest, probably the biggest ultra modern product in soccer, right? In terms of just a widespread
Between
product.
that and Chrome, yeah.
Yeah. So it's so different though than, say, I collect football, like NFL Prism football cards, which come out, like clockwork once a year.
Yep.
This is a once every 4 years product.
Yep.
It just built. So imagine if you got like a NFL product, but you only got it once every 4 years. You get like 4 rookie classes all in one. You get, so this is huge. What else makes these products that are coming out so unique, and which ones are you really excited for?
Yeah, I would say the uniqueness with, like you mentioned, because there's that huge gap, you have a lot of what people say first World Cup item. So, you're going to have Gavi, Pedri, Pulisic, all like a ton of this set is their first ever World Cup Prism card. So that's a big deal. But it's just a big deal just based on the fact that the World Cup is, the pinnacle of sporting events. So, to have a player in their kit for their country, with the World Cup logo, assuming the player plays well or has already, hit a pretty well-known status, people love to collect stuff like that just because, like you said, it's every 4 years. If you like to collect all cards of a certain player, it makes it a lot easier because, if there's, for football, if you have to collect 16, 17, 18, 19, 20 Prism, it ends up being a lot of cards if they play for 16 seasons or something like that. With the World Cup, it's 4, you just only have to collect 4 or 5 or however many World Cups they play in. So it's it limits the supply that are out there.
I know you were really into the World Cup stickers.
Yes.
Beyond Prism World Cup is kind of the king of all this, but what else is out there that people are really going to be after?
Yeah, the Panini World Cup stickers is, to the rest outside of the United States, it's the most famous, type of soccer collecting that's out there. It's how people, when they're kids, they collect it, they trade them at parks, at stores, at school. They're always trading to get the stickers that they need for their album to paste it in. And Panini's done some really cool things this year for the first time, which is for the United States version, actually released parallels. So there's like a red parallel, a blue parallel, a black one of one, green, purple, and it's really changed, I think, the view to a lot of collectors who might not have liked stickers or not understood them a lot. How cool they can be. So I've seen the Messi one of one, the Ronaldo one of one. It's super low chances of pulling them, but it's now become compared to 2018, 2014, 2010, 2006. It's definitely changed the view of the set to collectors in the United States and added more of a chase to that. But it's also cool the fact that there's different sets between South America, Europe, the USA. So it's that whole set is just, it's awesome. I personally love it. I love the fact that there's so many variations. It's a cool set. And then I think something that's going to be very popular high end is the Eminence World Cup set that's coming, and that's featuring on-card autographs, which in soccer is
very rare.
Very rare. Yes, it's not something that happens very often. So as soccer collectors, we are, we go right towards that. And it has been nice that the National Treasures Road to Qatar set just released a week or two ago. That did feature some on-card autographs as well, which of like Mbappe and Messi, Joao Felix, and it's it's cool to get all these products and be able to finally have more on card options as a collector.
Well, you mentioned there's not only a lot of products, but with it being such a great global game, there's so many big names involved in this.
Yes.
You mentioned, we've already talked about Messi, Ronaldo
Yeah.
playing in their final World Cups, like 99% sure, right?
Yes.
So let's go beyond those two, the big names,
Yeah.
the established names of Messi and Ronaldo, and let's kind of we can throw Mbappe in with them too, the breakout star of the last World Cup. He's, one of the best players on the planet today, still young, but so established. Beyond those three, who are the big names to watch in the next, month or two in the World Cup? Who do you think kind of is going to have the most eyes on?
Yeah, I mean, I think this one is an obvious answer, which is Neymar. A lot of people consider him one of the greatest Brazilian players of all time, but there's still the argument, he hasn't done a ton at the international level. Respect to trophies. He has scored a ton of goals. He's almost broken Pele's record for goals for Brazil, but at the international level, he's still lacking that massive achievement. And in 2014 and 2018, you could argue that he didn't have the greatest supporting cast of all time, but for 2022, he has, in my opinion, the best attacking partners you could ever ask for. Strong midfield, strong defense, great goalkeeping. Truly has an amazing team around him, and if he can stay healthy and no antics, I think this could easily be his moment to shine, and that would elevate him a lot. I'm also really looking forward to Harry Kane, even though I'm an Arsenal fan. Kane has done a lot for England, but is still again lacking silverware for club and country. And I think this is a chance for him to step it up and potentially, bring England to the finals. Maybe lift the trophy. That would be pretty cool for him.
That'd be massive for the sport.
It would be. England winning would be massive. They have a lot of young talent, like Jude Bellingham, Foden, Mason Mount. There's a lot of great young English players. I don't love their coach. Southgate is interesting guy, interesting lineup choices and strategy, but they were so close to winning the Euros just a year ago. I could easily see them going back to the semis or finals for the World Cup. And then a few more players that I'm interested in watching would be Sadio Mane is a big one. He edged out his teammate, or no longer teammate, Mo Salah for one of the Africa spots. Lewandowski, who has been up and down at Barcelona after a massive move. And then Benzema, just won the Ballon d'Or, finally back with the France squad after some issues that he had. Would love to see, how he can perform with Mbappe, with Griezmann, see if he fits into that squad well. And, France has honestly not had the greatest lead up to this World Cup. They've lost quite a few games at the national team level. So we'll see. Like, Benzema, considering how he's been playing for Real Madrid, could easily score a lot of goals.
So moving on from the bigger names and the more established names, I'm going to give you an opportunity to toot your own horn here a little bit, because when you were here back in April, again, if you want to check that episode, look for the link in the description. We talked about I believe it was 5 players under 25. I can't remember the exact age, but it was 5 young players who really were kind of poised for some big things coming up leading up to the World Cup. And you kind of went 5 for 5 here. So who were those 5 names?
If I remember correctly, and I want to point out, I think we said I couldn't pick Holland because I feel like he was too easy.
It was way too easy.
Yes. And by the way, he has been absolutely ridiculous. And just want to make sure people understand how good he is. And I love watching him at Man City. But I think the 5 names were Vinicius Jr. at 1, and I can't remember the order for the rest, but Foden, Rodrigo, Antony, and Pedri were the other 4. Rodrigo, I would say, was the only one where I could maybe say it was in the middle. Like, he still plays for Madrid, and to get a starting spot on that squad is, you have to be one of the greatest players in the world to start for that team. But he always comes on as a super sub, scores in the Champions League. Antony made a massive move to Manchester United. He has a few goals already for the club. I think he's been doing pretty well. He's a player I really hope makes the Brazil squad. And then Foden has been, playing out of his mind. Starts for Manchester City, which again is kind of like Real Madrid. Starting for them is difficult. It's we have to be consistently one of the best players in the world. I think he's going to be a great player for England. And then Pedri, yeah, he's a starter for Barcelona. Massive player, massive midfielder. Not scoring a ton of goals, but that's not really the role that he plays. But I truly do think he's going to be one of the greatest midfielders of this upcoming decade, or of the current decade that we just started. So I think all 5 of those players are still players that I think are going to be great for the hobby and the sport.
And again, we wouldn't let you name Holland because it was, I mean, even I could get that one. Someone who's like very, very casually follows the game. But I do want to ask you about Erling Haaland because he's consistently one of the most popular players submitted by collectors here at PSA. Does not playing in the World Cup hurt him at all in the hobby, both in the short term and the long term? I mean, he's so young. There's going to be more opportunities. He doesn't play for a traditional power, but what kind of effect do you think it has not only for him in the hobby in the next 6 months, but also just kind of looking long term?
Yeah, originally about maybe a month or 2 ago, I would have told you short term it will affect his prices. But for the amount he's scoring for Manchester City and the fact that it's looking more likely than not he'll easily break the goal record for the Premier League in his first season, I do think that will be his saving grace for the short term.
Him over.
Yeah, to carry him over that time where he's not, on the international spotlight. Long term, I do think at the minimum he needs to qualify for 2 World Cups, and I do think that will be possible. He does have some good teammates like Odegaard from Arsenal, another young up and coming player. And so I think if he can help lead Norway to 1 or 2 World Cups, it doesn't matter really if they win it, because the chances of that are just so low. Considering how Norway has been. But he truly needs to power that team to at least making a few appearances.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah,
it's like too early to say long term he's not in good shape. Like,
yes, yeah. And I mean, if he wins 10 straight Champions League trophies at Man City,
does the World Cup matter?
The World Cup doesn't matter, because you're playing against the best players in the world at that point. But he does need to get into 1 or 2 of those.
That's good to know that there is some override. Like the World Cup is not the end all be all.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, we mentioned the young names that you already hit on. To close it out, I want to ask, who's the young name, or maybe a little bit under the radar name, who you really think can break out here in this World Cup? Like maybe not to the Kylian Mbappe level from 2018, but who can really elevate his name, his brand, his power, not only with fans, but with card collectors. And you can go even beyond one, but who are some young names beyond those to keep an eye on?
Yeah, I just want to caveat this by saying it's hard to, since they haven't picked the squads yet, it's a little hard to be 100% certain on some of these players making the teams. But a few of them that I really like, Valverde for Uruguay, and he plays for Madrid, has been outstanding this season. I think his position isn't necessarily one in the hobby that is extremely sought after, but I do think in terms of branding and making his name known, I think he's going to really rise.
And that position is
midfielder.
Okay. Yeah. Just because we went through that in the first episode too, like comparing it across other sports.
Yeah.
Like the forward, the number 10 is basically like your star shortstop or quarterback or whatever. Yes. But yeah. So, okay.
I see what you're saying. His position is very difficult to compare to, but I will think about that. A few more. An obvious one is Gavi for Spain. He's was starting for Barcelona. I believe it's 17 years old in the midfield along Pedri. So he definitely has the chance to play games for Spain. Make his name known. He just won the Golden Boy Award, which is like the best young player in the world. So, he's definitely a talent in that regard. I think, some obvious ones are like Jude Bellingham for England, a great player for Dortmund. He's really been performing well this season.
Another popular guy with PSA submitters.
Yes. Yeah. He's definitely popular. So that one's not a super, him and Gavi aren't under the radar at all, but they're both players that easily could make their name even bigger in the hobby. And other than that, I do really like Jonathan David of Canada. He's been a great striker for Lille in France, and it would be great to see Canada do well at the World Cup. I know they don't make it very often, so I really do hope that they can break through the group stage and make it into the knockout rounds.
Okay, what are you most excited for in the World Cup this year? I know you're a Brazil guy.
Yes, yeah, I am biased towards Brazil. I feel like there's going to be a lot of upsets this season. Excuse me, this World Cup. France coming into the World Cup, like I think I mentioned, has had a poor record the last 6 months to a year. I think they could easily have a shocking exit in the group stage. That's a bold take, but definitely see it happening. My dark horse is Uruguay.
That's what I was going to ask. If you're saying there's going to be a lot of upsets, who's pulling them?
My dark horse is Uruguay
Okay.
for sure. I think Argentina is going to do very well, which is not a hot take at all. They definitely have Messi and a lot of other great players, so that's not a super hot take. I think the USA will make it out of the group that they're in, which is a little bit of a hot take now because we've been playing rough the last 6 months. We had some tough games this summer, some lack of goal scoring. But I do think, Pulisic and Reina and Aronson and whoever else is brought by Greg Berhalter to Qatar, I truly do think that they're going to, being such a young squad, and this is their first World Cup, they don't have the experience of going to this level, but I do think they have the fight and they want to show that who they are and make themselves known and, say we are going to be here the next 2-3 World Cups. So I am really excited to watch the USA play some great teams. England, Wales, Iran, all are great squads, and I think Iran is rated 20th in the world, and we technically have the highest average rating or highest, however you want to put it, the best rating overall of all the teams by the current FIFA ranking. So it's a tough group. And we're going to be playing some of the best players in the world. Like I mentioned, Harry Kane, Saka of England, Bellingham, Foden. We're going to have to be defending against some of these great players, and it's going to be a good watch. Super exciting. And I think that's most of my hot takes. I think those are my takes.
You emptied it out.
I emptied it out. I could keep going, but I think those are ones I feel pretty strongly about. So
okay, I will ask one more question because we always keep it about the cards, right?
Yeah, what's up?
The one, even with products that haven't come out, what's your one card from the World Cup releases that are coming out this month and leading up to the World Cup that you just number one on your must get list?
It's a good question, and it's
if you don't want to give away number one to get sniped,
no.
You can go number 2 or 3.
No, it does go back to me being biased about Brazil. I think for me, a dream card would be either a Prism Black of Vinicius Jr., it being his first World Cup. I truly do think he's going to be one of the greatest players of this generation. I think that would be my dream card if I could pick one. Eminence-wise, any on-card of Messi or Ronaldo is my go-to answer there. They're the two greatest players of our generation, or of the last 15 years, pretty clearly. So if I had to pick those from Eminence, I would take those two. So,
okay.
Yeah.
So you got your work cut out for you.
I do. I'm saving up some money to get some more Neymar and Vinny and some more Brazilian players. So
awesome. Well, here's to a great World Cup, and I'm sure this is going to be very listened to, just like the last one. We can't wait to have you back. Thanks for taking the time.
Yeah, we'll have to do a recap after the World Cup.
We just might.
Yeah.
All right.
Thanks.
We're taking a short break here. Matt, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
All right. Well, once again, an incredibly fascinating conversation about the soccer card market with Matt Hendler. Hope you enjoyed it. We're going to be back later this week. For the first time here on the PSA Pod, we're going to have 2 episodes this week. Second episode this week is going to be dedicated strictly to the core score. We will not upset Drew this week by putting Zion back in the algorithm. I felt kind of bad last week. Drew, I apologize. It's going to be Josh Allen this week. We're going to move over to football. We're going to have the core score episode with myself, Jack, Chris from Card Ladder. Can't wait. Check it out later this week. In the meantime, leave us a comment, leave us a review, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. We will be back later this week with more here on the PSA Pod.